Do you ever feel like you've worked on the same part of your personality or tried to change the same habit for like your entire life and then feel frustrated that you just can't seem to make the change? I think that happens for most people. I think that we all have certain things about ourselves and habits that are really, really difficult to change. And it's easy to slip into the trap of beating ourselves up for it and being like, why can I never get this right? Like, will I ever be able to master that? And so today's video is going to discuss a strategy that you can use to help, one, break that habit, but two, improve your overall feelings around it so you're not spending time beating yourself up over something which doesn't actually change the habit at all. My name is Trisha Veldman. I am founder of Powerful and Poised. I'm a spoken word poet and speech and confidence coach. Today's video is actually inspired by a conversation I had with a client just yesterday. So this client has been working with me for some speech issues. He has borderline stuttering, so he'll stutter every once in a while, and he just doesn't feel like he has a lot of control over his physical speech, and he gets very anxious speaking. And we've been working together for about 1.5 years, and we've talked a lot about some of the deeper inner workings that are causing his anxiety. And one thing that we have discussed at length is his tendency to beat himself up and be very, very hard on himself with a variety of things. It's very rare that I hear him say something positive about himself unless I encourage him to find something positive to say. And so what came up yesterday is he was going through some of the same frustrations that he's had for a very long time that I think a lot of people can resonate with, which is he was like, I want to change these habits. I really do. But it's the same thing over and over. I've been taking speech lessons for 1.5 years and I still, I feel like my speech has gotten better. This is what he said, but I know I should be practicing more and I'm not consistent with my practice and then I beat myself up over it. I want to have a better sleep schedule. I want to exercise more, et cetera, et cetera. He had all these goals and things that he's been wanting to do for a while. And this has come up so many times in our sessions. And he was like, we just keep talking about it and I'm not making the changes. And he recognizes that he is to some degree putting in the effort. He's taking the sessions. And he has to go the extra mile to actually do the homework between the sessions to get the full benefit. He's still making a lot of progress, but it's different. For example, if you hire a personal trainer and have one session a month, that's different from exercising a little bit every day. And so to some degree, we have to put in the work on our own time to see those big gains. So anyway, he was really down on himself and just feeling frustrated. And I certainly have done that and continue to do that at times where it's like, oh my gosh, like I say, personal example, every year I'm like, this year I'm going to be more organized. I'm going to have more systems in place and I'm going to stick with them and I'm going to have less clutter in my house. And some years I've been like, you know what? I'm just going to accept the fact that I'm a disorganized person, which is not always true. I can be very organized and some people think I'm like super organized, but my home, for example, I tend to have a lot of clutter. This is something I've shared on this channel before. And I have routines, but when it comes to my projects, my creative projects, I have so many things going on all the time in my mind that I don't always follow through and finish the project. YouTube, I have become very consistent at because I chose a system, which was upload a video every week and shorts every day that has worked for me until my mom passed away recently and those shorts every day kind of stopped for a period of time, but I'm getting back into it. Don't worry in case you noticed or missed my shorts. But that has been helpful for me because it's been a consistent thing that's manageable. Other parts of my life, I've said like, yeah, I want to have a system for this. It doesn't necessarily work. But what I have learned and what my client and I discussed yesterday is that no matter what it is that you're frustrated with about yourself, beating yourself up about it isn't helping. right? It's not changing anything. If I get down on myself and say, oh my gosh, I wish I could just be a more organized person. I wish I could have these systems. That's not making a system happen. And my client constantly saying, I need to practice my speech more is not making his speech better. This actually just came to mind. The other day, I was talking to my dad. I just started a fun new part-time job, and the place where it is used to be 20 minutes from my house, and now it's like 45 minutes depending on traffic. And so I was talking to my dad, and I was like, I need to get going. And he was telling me the best route to take to avoid the traffic. And then at some point, he kept going on about it, and I did too. We were just chatting. And then at some point I was like, okay, the fastest way for me to get there is for me to get in the car. Telling me this route, or us analyzing like, oh, but this light takes a long time, or oh, the other day the GPS took me to this turn and it didn't even have a light, and da 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 da. Like, us talking about it, not getting me there faster. Me getting in the car and taking any route is gonna get me there faster. And I completely forgot about that until this moment. But it's a beautiful illustration of the concept and the idea that I want to share, which came up in the session yesterday. You may have heard before, and I know I've said it, but I didn't make this up. I've heard it said that the antidote for anxiety is action. It's not necessarily sitting there and analyzing, why do I feel anxious, and thinking about what you could do to change it. Yes, there is a time and a place for self-reflection. There's a time and a place for feeling all of those feelings and letting them exist. And sometimes we're anxious because we're being too passive. And sometimes the best thing to do to quell that anxiety is to take action. I was getting anxious talking to my dad about all the best routes to take. And it's like, okay, the only way that's going to get me there is to literally get in the car and start driving. And I was late. But it's okay. So what I was saying to him yesterday, to my client yesterday, is he was like, I just keep getting upset with myself about not practicing my speech. So the practical strategy I gave him was, the next time you feel yourself getting annoyed with yourself about not practicing your speech, stop and do a tongue twister. I gave him a list of 50 tongue twisters because articulation is something he wants to work on. And I was like, put a few of those on the notes app on your phone. Commit one or two of them to memory. And so if you're driving and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, my speech was so bad at that party just now, stop your thoughts and say a tongue twister, or do a different exercise. Do an exercise so that instead of just spiraling about not being good at something, do something about it. But it doesn't have to be like, what so many of us do is we get frustrated and then we say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this for an hour. And it's like, does that even happen? And if it does happen, it's not stopping the anxiety in the moment. So if, for example, you're like, oh my gosh, I really need to work out more. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym. What about do 3 squats right where you are? Or go take a 10-minute walk. And so what I shared with him that I was going to try to start doing, because we'd gotten in this discussion about acceptance, and I shared the story about how, like, at some level I've just accepted I'm probably not ever going to be the most tidy person in the world. My desk is probably always going to have a bunch of papers on it, and I've accepted that about myself. And he was like, well, doesn't that mean you're like giving up? And I said, I don't think so, because I'm not entirely giving up. I'm still going to try my best. But if right now I was just beating myself up for all the papers that are on my desk right now, that would take me from this moment. And so at some level I have to accept, like, okay, there are papers on my desk and I'm going to make it work. And I'll have those bursts of like tidying up, and I try once a week to clear things off. But anyway, so using my own personal example with organization and tidiness and reducing clutter, what I told him I was going to try to do to be in this with him is, when I feel myself like, oh, papers all over my desk again, like I can just never get this right, I'm so unorganized. When I get in those states of self-deprecation and beating myself up over it, I'm going to take a paper, throw it away, or put something in its place. And as I was brainstorming this video, I walked downstairs and I saw books all over my coffee table, and it was just kind of this like, annoyance to myself. And I was like, you know what? Every time I hear myself go, I'm going to do something. So what I did is I went and I stacked the books, and I found a book that I'd forgotten that I bought recently that I haven't finished yet. So it was a nice reminder, and it made me feel slightly better. And I know when I go downstairs now, I'm going to feel slightly better seeing that my table is more organized instead of the books just being there sloppily. So I think it is important, one, to accept this about ourselves, because beating ourselves up doesn't do anything. Me being mad at myself for having a cluttered home is not tidying the home. It's not changing the reality. Beating yourself up about not eating well or not exercising enough or not getting things done, it's not making the situation better. If anything, it's just making it worse. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then we feed the narrative that, like, I'll never be good at this. What my client constantly tells himself is that he's a bum. And he's like, I've tried this for years and I never get better. I'm just a bum. And I'm like, that narrative is not serving you at all. It's not going to make you any less of a bum. And the thing that will serve you is taking action. But I think where a lot of us get stuck is we'll aim for so much action that then it's not sustainable or manageable, and it's not something we can do in that exact moment. So for him, it feels like a bum in relation to speech, do a tongue twister. And then little things like that I've mentioned throughout this video, if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to exercise more, do some squats, do some jumping jacks, turn on a fun song and start dancing, do whatever. But do something small in the moment. And because I just had this conversation yesterday, I'm still trying to form this habit myself. But I think if you can make an association between the ugh or that feeling of being mad at yourself with immediately jumping into action, I think that with enough awareness and intention behind that, that with time, that will become a reaction. It'll be an associated behavior. So instead of the association being me seeing my coffee table and being annoyed at myself, it's seeing it, doing a little something, and then feeling better. So I'd be curious to know what it is for you that feels like that pesky habit that's just impossible to change, that you find yourself shaming yourself for not doing anything about it, and then being mad at yourself for not doing anything about it. And what is one small step that you can do every time you start to tell yourself the story that you're bad or wrong or feel guilty about it? And if you want, we can be in this together and practice in real time. So leave a comment and let me know what that is for you. And remember, put this on a Post-it, put it on your computer, put it on your desk, put it on your phone. The remedy to anxiety is action. Instead of sitting and stewing in the negativity, do something about it. Oh, which reminds me, really important. This goes pretty deep too. So as I've shared in the last few videos, my mother recently passed away. That has obviously been front of mind for me. And I've noticed that this concept that I'm sharing is 100% relevant to the grief process too. I have been able to manage my grief because I let myself in the mornings and in the evenings go all in and just feel it. And I cry and I feel it, but throughout the day, if things come up, like right now, I'm starting to get a little teary-eyed, I'll let them come up, but I don't necessarily open the box and delve all the way in the way I do in my morning meditation and when I'm settling down in the evening. But what I do that I think coincides with this concept that I'm sharing is when I'm feeling the sadness or the grief or the anxiety about it, the action step I take is I'll pause for a moment and I'll connect to my mom and I'll say her name and I'll talk to her. And that helps a lot. And sometimes it makes me really sad, but most of the time it makes me feel better because I still feel connected. So it's like this pain that could just sit there, or we could just ignore it, or you can do something about it. And so I'm doing something about it by allowing that connection to still be alive and be present. And then obviously if I'm in the middle of doing something like recording a video and that comes up, I may not connect with her 100%. Like I'm not going to say her name and start talking to her right now, but internally I feel that connection. And I'm actually taking action on the grief right now by turning this pain that I'm feeling into something that it can potentially be helpful for other people. I'm using it to create something new, which is a YouTube video. And obviously, if you know me, you know I'm a writer and a poet, and so I've been transmuting a lot of that into my writing as well, which goes to say also, if you can't think of an action step related to the specific thing that's giving you anxiety, take action on something else. Like if this morning, for example, I was a little frustrated with this new job that I have because their communication hasn't, it's left me in the dark on certain things, and I was really kind of annoyed to find out that I was behind on some messages, and that affected me because now that just affects my schedule and my life, and I won't bore you with the details, but it kind of annoyed me. And then I was sitting there stewing in this annoyance, and I'm like, this is not helping anything or anyone, so let me do something else. And so then I opened a document on my computer and I started writing. And so you don't necessarily have to take action on the thing that's giving you anxiety if there's no action step to take. Do what you can, but then if it's helpful, just do something else. And I recommend taking active action, not just mindlessly scrolling or going on Facebook or looking for some distraction that's potentially going to make you feel worse. But do something that actually is going to make you feel better. Create something. A similar video I did was turn your worries into superpowers by recognizing that worries are actually stories. And so you can use that as creative energy anytime a worry pops up. So I'll link that one here. Check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and leave a comment and let me know what it is you are working on. Thanks so much.